Mr. Doukakis, it is an honor to meet you. Welcome.
Good to be with you.
Greece seems to be in the middle of everything. The Balkans, the Middle East, Turkey, even Ukraine. What is your predicament, the risks and opportunities this geographical position present us with?
Well, Greece is in a very important position here in many ways. I mean, for one thing, there's a lot of history here. This is a country that's been a trading country, a seafaring country, and has played a major role for a long, long time in world history. So I think Greece is in a position to be extremely helpful here as we try to build a world in which peace, not war, is the way we're trying to solve problems. And I really mean this. We're closer to that than any time in world history. So I see Greece as a country that can play an important role in that, particularly given what is going on in the Middle East these days. And Greece is closest to the Middle East and also some long historic ties with the Middle East. And obviously I want the United States to be working very closely with Greece on this.
How will the superpowers of this world, USA, Russia, China, react to what is happening? What will they try to gain out of this chaotic situation?
Well, I don't view this as a chaotic situation. I think there's a lot of exaggeration of this. There's a very thoughtful professor and scholar at Harvard named Steven Pinker who keeps reminding us that the level of violence in the world these days is at historic lows. Now that may sound strange to us as we watch the TV and listen to all of this talk about conflict, but as Pinker points out, in 5/6 of the world there is no conflict. And there's never been a period in world history when that was the case. I mean, look at Europe, constant war. Latin America, the Western Hemisphere, constant war. That's over in so many of these regions. It doesn't mean that we still don't have some issues. But I'm very optimistic about the future. And I think one of the things that we have got to be very careful about is not exaggerating these conflicts and turning them into situations that really don't deserve to be there. Look, I'm concerned about what Putin is doing. But when people say to me, what do you think of Putin? I say, well, I remember Joseph Stalin. Putin isn't that bad. The relationship that all of us have, and especially the US with China, is very, very important. I mean, China is going to be a major player of the world scene. And they may not agree with us on everything, but you know, most of the things I buy in the United States these days say made in China. And we've just signed a historic climate change agreement with China. So I see real opportunities for cooperation and collaboration. We're not going to agree on everything. And I'm obviously concerned about the terrorist situation. But you know, most established governments don't like terrorists. Whether they agree with us or not philosophically, established governments don't like terrorists. So I think there's a lot more room here for cooperation. And I want to see my country playing a major role in contributing to this kind of world.
How?
First, by supporting the UN, which I think is very important. I think that's the one institution that can really help us to solve these problems. Take a look at the Iranian nuclear agreement, for example. Without the UN and without the UN Security Council, that would have never happened. Quite frankly, the idea that the United States is the world's only superpower is ridiculous. We should be trying to build a world that collaborates, that works hard, that does the kind of thing we did with Iran, with the help of the UN. And I think the more that kind of effort succeeds, the more likely it is that we're going to get the kind of world that we want.
What is your stance towards Prime Minister Tsipras? What advice would you give to our Prime Minister to assist him in getting the country out of this present economic depression?
Greece is is facing a very difficult situation here, as the Greeks know. When Franklin Roosevelt was elected President of the United States in 1932, the United States was in the same situation Greece is in today. The Great Depression, as we called it, 25% unemployment. And he had a visit by the famous British economist John Maynard Keynes, because Roosevelt, amazingly, had campaigned on an austerity platform. He was going to balance the budget and cut spending and so on and so forth. And Keynes said to him, Mr. President, you'll never get out of this depression by cutting spending and raising taxes. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to deliberately run deficits, stimulate the economy, and over a period of time, you're going to be able to get out of it. And we did. Greece doesn't have that flexibility because it's part of the Eurozone. And so I think the challenge for all of us here, and I and lots of my fellow Greek Americans in the United States are doing everything we can to be helpful here, is sure to try to deal with some of Greece's fundamental budget problems, but at the same time, not force them to engage in policies that will never get you out of this hole that you're in.
Do you think that Alexis Tsipras has a vision now?
Well, I think I know what he wants to do. The question is, or for that matter, any Greek prime minister, the question is, will the EU let him do it? There are things Greece has got to do, no question about it, and most of them you've done. But at this point, it seems to me that the time has come to see if we can help you to stimulate the economy and get people back to work and do the kinds of things that most governments, when they're faced with this situation, as mine was 8 years ago, try to do.
Greece is a member of NATO and the European Union, and at the same time it has a left-wing government for almost the last 20 months. Is there a contradiction in terms here?
No, I don't see any contradiction.
No.
I really don't. Mm-hmm. Look, whoever the prime minister is and whatever government is in power in Greece, there are certain things that it has to do. And I think the Greek people know what they are. And they've been suffering as a result of it. But some of these things had to be done.
Do you visit Greece often?
Well, we come over about every 3 years.
Every 3 years?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what makes you proud of your origin?
I don't know of any Greek American who isn't very proud of his Greek heritage. And I mean that. You know, we're very proud people. We care deeply about Greece. You know, many of us were brought up Greek. We know all about Greek history. We know about Greek democracy. We know about Athenian democracy. We grow up with that.
1 month ago, Christine Lagarde proposed that Greece becomes the permanent location for the Olympic Games. Do you agree?
I like that idea very much.
Is this a realistic proposal?
We'll see, but I think this jockeying back and forth, I mean, fortunately, Brazil pulled it off, but it wasn't easy. And I think it would be great for Greece, and I think it would be great for the world community to make Athens the permanent
What would the pros and cons be?
I don't know what the cons are. The pros are, no, I'm serious. I mean, for one thing, we'd eliminate this, you know, there's been a lot of corruption involved in much of this stuff, as we know, and it's enormously expensive. It's difficult for these various cities, and, you know, you have the infrastructure. You did a fabulous job.
We do. We do have it.
The Olympics in
ready.
Athens, the Olympics in Athens were wonderful. So I think it makes all kinds of sense. It would eliminate a lot of uncertainty and debate back and forth, and what better place to have it than the place where it all began.
I agree with you.
I'm all for it.
Let's go back to the States. Where is the next US election going?
I'm not sure.
And what is your opinion about Donald Trump?
Well, look, I'm strongly for Hillary Clinton. You know, I don't know what I called Trump, but he's a strange guy. He's, you know, I don't know if you can believe anything he says. I'm not even sure what his philosophy is, to tell you the truth. But for any of us who are part of the immigrant tradition, and most Americans are, to have a serious candidate for the presidency, talk about building walls and walling off American Muslims in some way, and putting religious and racial tests on whether or not you can come to the United States or for that matter, stay there. For most of us, he's just so un-American that we don't understand what this fellow is talking about. His economic policies don't make any sense. Every day there's something else coming out of him that is even more amazing than what happened the day before. And I don't have to tell you that I think Trump as president would be a disaster. But there are a lot of folks in the United States who are not happy. The gap between the rich and the rest of us is growing every day, and people resent that. For a lot of people, yes, there's been a recovery, and if you look at the U.S., it looks pretty good from an economic standpoint compared to the rest of the world. But a lot of people are not benefiting from that. And wages and income for the bottom 60 to 80% in the United States have not grown very much at all. Most of the income growth has been in the top 20%. So if you're wondering why people are angry in the United States, that's one of the reasons. And it's one of the reasons which I think is behind the fact that Trump still seems to be relatively close, if you believe the polls.
And of course, our Greek readers and viewers would be very interested to know your opinion of how the 8-year Obama presidency fared and your view about Hillary Clinton's prospects to win and then to become a successful president.
I think she can be a very successful president, but she's got to win first. And that takes organization, it takes effort. A lot of people are working hard to try to do that. I think Barack Obama has been a very successful president. I'm very pleased with what he's done. I continue to be concerned, as I said earlier, about where American foreign policy is going. Foreign policy and national security policy. The situation in Syria is a disaster. And we were part of that. And I think, again, to go back to what I said earlier, I think we've got to work as hard as we possibly can to create a strong UN, to create an international community which can deal with these problems before they end up with 500,000 people dead and 12 million refugees and, you know, my Papu and Yaya's home island getting 500,000 refugees alone to Mytilene. I mean, we've got to do better than that. So I think we have things to do when it comes to...
What would be the solution for
Well,
this?
I think, well, as I said to you, I mean, I think we've got to create a UN and international institutions that can deal with these problems. I think my country has to be very, very careful about intervening here and there and everywhere, as do others, by the way. It's not just the U.S. And that's where I think I mean, the invasion of Iraq made no sense at all. And why we thought we could do that, should do that, what we thought was going to happen as a result of it is still a mystery to me.
Yes, but is globalization slowing down?
No, look,
The whole theory?
With modern communication, this world is going to become closer and closer and closer. I mean, it's really remarkable. And I think that's a good thing. On the other hand, we have to remember that globalization hurts some people. And the question is, how do you get the advantages of globalization without at the same time doing a lot of harm to people who lose their jobs, whose income goes down, who are not benefiting from globalization? And I think we know how to do that. But we've got to do it, we've got to take it seriously.
You are a very experienced politician. Your ethics and values are widely known. Every Greek was sad not to see you elected as the President of the United States. In Greece, we are going through a crisis. What is your advice to the young generation of Greek politicians?
If this country is going to achieve what it can and should, and it's a very special place, it's so important that we give young people a sense of hope. You know, there was a time, we have a lot of young Greeks who come to school in the Boston area and go to our great universities. And 20 years ago, they were all coming back to Greece because they felt good about the country, they felt good about their futures. Now a lot of them don't want to come back. And as you know, there are hundreds of thousands of intelligent, thoughtful, able young Greeks that are now
losing.
You're losing these folks.
Exactly, many of our great minds.
I think one of the things we have to say to the young people here is, look, this is your country. Things are tough, but your country needs you if we're going to turn the situation around. So I hope young Greeks will stay here, contribute to what I hope is going to be a much better future for Greece.
Would you like to say something in Greek?
To close. Τα ελληνικά μου είναι πολύ απλά και δεν έχω αξιολογητικών καθόλου.
That's enough.
But I'm very proud, you know. Είμαι Μυτιληνιός, είμαι Μικασιάτης, είμαι Λαρισαίος, είμαι Υπηρώτης και you know, I'm very proud of this country. I'm very proud that I am a Greek American and that I'm part of this immigrant community that came to the United States, worked hard, and now wants to give back to Greece, and I hope we can.
I would like to thank you, and ήταν μεγάλη χαρά και τιμή που σας γνώρισα και που είχα αυτή την ευκαιρία να μιλήσουμε.
Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ.
Thank you so much. Thank you.